Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Littleton Select Board meeting, November 3rd, 6:30 p.m. Excuse me. Tonight we have one item. It's a public hearing to discuss the tax increment financing agreement between the Town of Littleton and the Potpourri Group Incorporated. Do we have to do a motion to open the public hearing? Or is this an informal public hearing?
Informal public hearing.
So I will, let's begin discussing this. I would be happy to hear from the board on the TIF. If anyone wants to have opinions, state them.
Mr. Chair, we have
Yes.
with us this evening representatives from Potpourri. Ken is the Chief Financial Officer, and I think he has a presentation that he wanted to just present to them, or have a discussion with the board.
Please. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Ken Leung. I'm the CFO of Potpourri Group. And before I do anything, I'll introduce you to Pat Wood. He brave enough, and accompany me to the meeting. But also, more importantly, he is the on-the-ground senior director in charge of the Littleton facility. So basically, when Anthony and I and Kathy met early October, I had introduced them to Pat, and going forward, he's the local contact for the city on any issues involved. So,
Thank you.
As I look at the board, I'm not sure I recognize any old faces. I think we did the TIF agreement, I think in November 2014. So just for the benefit, I'll digress back and kind of give you some background on that. So at that time, we operate a warehouse of 120,000 square feet in Whitinsville. And it's a really old barn building, and it's not well lit. And we decided to look for a new site for a really modern and automated order fulfillment facility. So we found Littleton here. There's an empty lot available. So we make the deal with the landlord, and then we come to the city for a TIF agreement. So the objective at that time is that we are going from a really heavily manual process into a highly automated process, and it involved pretty significant transition risk for us. So that's why we went to the city, and at that time get the necessary support for the TIF agreement. So that's the background for that. And actually, it turned out we're doing well. We navigate pretty successfully through that technology leap from a manual process to an automated process. And then we work within the 450,000 square feet facility very efficiently. So since we moved into the facility in July 2016, we have acquired 2 additional brands into the warehouse, and also we moved our order fulfillment operation from Maine into here. So basically, we are pretty centralized. This is the only order fulfillment facility we have in the United States, and it serves over 2 million customers throughout the United States, and we ship close to $3 million package every year in that facility. And that's all we have. So this facility is very important to us. So hopefully that's kind of a background to what our facility is all about. Okay. Now, probably lead me to the question of, well, why am I here? Okay. And it's and why do I have a non-compliance issue? Okay, so I think to boil down simply is that our non-compliance issue is relating to the head count. And at the time we make the agreement, the baseline number is 227 head count full-time. And then we expected over the course of 10 years to add 130. Okay? But I would like to, the 227 baseline number basically is made up of two very separate operations. One is the part that Pat Wood is running is called, we call the order fulfillment. But also another part is our call center operation. Even today, we have maybe about 35% of the order from our customer, they call in through a toll-free number, and somebody had to service those orders. So, and what happened is, in the baseline number, just kind of give you a magnitude, about half of that number is relating to the call center, and the other half is relating to the order fulfillment at that time. And we have been struggling with the staffing of the call center side for a long time. And finally, in the year 2018, we make the decision of phasing out of the call center. Now, the call is still coming to us, but we basically outsource that call center function to a third-party vendor. So 2018, we are phasing it down, and then by 2019, that 100-some headcount is all gone. It go to an outside vendor. So that's the main reason why there's a significant shortfall versus our original commitment. So hopefully that kind of address that issue.
Thank you.
So the next, I would like Pat to walk you through a few pictures that we have prepared. So give you a sense of what our facility looks like, and talk about a future investment plan that we have, and then we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Good evening.
I won't take up too much of your time. Just want to give you a little background of Littleton 3 Distribution Center Circle. This is where we're located here. These 2 pictures are the current state of our facility as it is now. I've spent a lot of time from beginning to end of that build. So it's a very nice facility, brand new, state-of-the-art inside. If we can go to the next slide. Some of our workforce, you see here, very diverse workforce. We work Monday through Friday right now, 7 to 3:30. We are doing a second shift, seasonal shift from 3:30 to 12. Some of our staff you see here enjoying lunch in our cafeteria, working on several different aspects of what we do within the facility as well. Here is, oops, that's okay. A couple of pictures of our infrastructure and our technology. Top left you see is an overview of just from our shipping mezzanine down to our packing floor is where everything is located, where we pack. The next picture, I should have brought my glasses, is looking out over a different aspect of our shipping area with all the material handling equipment. And you'll see these material handling equipment conveyors throughout the facility. It's 450,000 square feet. We use a lot of this conveyor system to move product to the people where they're working instead of the people traveling and walking that distance with the product. We use this conveyor to get the product to them faster, to get the product and the orders out the door quicker. And as you can see on the bottom right, that is a far shot of our expansion requirement that we should be coming up on here in the next few years. If you go to the next slide. So right now, the bottom picture is an overview of the packing department, and I'd say 3/4 of our picking department on the left-hand side of the picture. The top picture is a close-up of the bottom part of picking. In our future expansion, it's called the mezzanine. We can go 3 floors high mezzanine. And what our process is we want to replicate everything we're doing on the first floor and put that onto the second floor. And that's based on how we acquire outside catalogs. We turn them into success catalogs when we integrate all this material handling equipment in a software technology that we have within the facility. We have the capability to go up 2 floors, which will add on 206,000 square feet to our operating area within that picking department. We are in the process of investigating the cost to get this second level done at this time, because we are in the need, and will certainly be in the need in the future, for more space for our picking department's future. Next picture. And this is Ken's Cast. I just want to thank you for your time. And if anybody on the board has not been to the facility before and would like to come in and, take a quick tour or a detailed tour, I'm there every day, 6:30 to 4 o'clock. My name's Patrick Wood. Come on down and I'll give you a quick tour, whatever you need to look at.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the last slide we have here is basically what is our request. We understand we are clearly not in compliance with the current agreement. So hopefully Pat give you a sense of the scale of our operation, and it's the only order fulfillment we have. It's important to us. So we would like to ask your continued support, and we basically we can work with the staff to basically come up with a acceptable agreement based on acceptable benchmark, and then we go from there. So that's what we ask. So the table, I just, in the absence of anything, I kind of come up with here. We show the year, and then I kind of give you an example of a benchmark, which is based on cumulative capital investment, and then what are the discount rate that can be offered for the property tax as well as the personal property tax. So, right now, actually, the agreement is really focused on head count. And actually, capital investment, it was mentioned in the agreement, is $14 million. And actually, within the 6 years we were in the facility, we already had more investment tied up in that facility than the $14 million. It's the head count, and I explained because of the need to outsource it to a much bigger party in order to manage it successfully. That's kind of forced us to abandon close to half of the base number. So that's our request for your consideration.
Thank you. All right, I'll open it up to the board members.
Mr. Logan, if you don't mind just staying up at the microphone so that if we do have any questions for you, either one of you. One of the questions I have is relative to, you just mentioned kind of the main tenets of the agreement. Tax increment financing agreement. But so there was significant investment made. Obviously, you bought the property and made investments to build the property, build it out, and made some decisions to outsource some of the functions and some of those opportunities to have the head count that would have potentially met some of the requirements that we had in order for you to be in compliance with the agreement with us and with the state. Those investments, the last statement you made, I think, is that you've made above and beyond the $14 million within 6 years. You had already met that $14 million requirement that we had written into the agreement. one of the concerns I have is with those investments, with all the equipment and the material handling equipment and robots and sorting, packing, taping, the whole 9 yards. A lot of that personal property isn't necessarily we're not getting a gain from that because we've been unable to access the facility in order to determine what the value is of that equipment, in order for us to get our fair share in the commercial taxes that we are owed, frankly. So if you're telling me that it's more than the $14 million, then I'm thinking that we're owed more than what was agreed upon above and beyond, whether or not the TIF stays in place or not. I think we need to make sure that we've got an agreement that the town of Littleton will have access, our professionals, that this is how we come up with these numbers, they will have access to the facility in order to fairly assess for you and for our taxpayers, because what one taxpayer doesn't pay, the other taxpayers bear the burden. So we need to have as accurate a number as we can. We can pretty much establish a number on the real estate, but everything inside the building and the operation inside the building, the equipment inside the building is something that we need your help with, frankly.
Actually, that's why in early October this year, Kathy as well as Anthony visited our facility for the first time, and that's why I introduced Pat Wood.
Appreciate that.
I said, hey, from now on, if you want to visit, talk to Pat, 24 hours notice, and we will arrange a time.
Okay.
So and actually, we got contacted recently by an outside auditor that retained by the town
Right.
to go over our list filing, personal properties filing with the city, and he will go scrub it. And basically, I think it's on the latter part of this month. My controller and him will discuss and go through the list at the building. So I think that's done.
Okay, so one of my concerns, I don't want to speak for the whole board, but one of my concerns is the fact that in October of 2022, we were granted access, which is great, and we appreciate that, and in order for us to work together, and have a strong relationship, that has to happen.
Yeah.
But up until October of 2022, we didn't have access. So we were, Kathy could speak to this much more intelligently than I can, but we were guesstimating at best, because Kathy's not an expert necessarily on the type of equipment that you have in that facility, and so,
On that, actually, I look back, we have some problem in the past, but when I look back, this year, we asked for a 30-day extension. And we did file our personal property that from our vantage point, a listing to the city by March 31st, 2022. Then I look back 2 years in a row. We did file before the deadline of March 1st, 2021, and file before the filing deadline of March 1st, 2020. So that's what I look back is, the last 3 years, we were filing on time, the listing. Now the issue is, I want to verify your listing. So, we address that this time.
I don't want to dominate the conversation, but with what you're putting before us here is so you agree that you're in non-compliance,
Right.
but is it your intention tonight by bringing this slide here, are you asking us to continue the TIF and to come up with some sort of a cumulative spend and to figure out that is, do you have any proposals for us that we would be able to better understand what the impact would be?
Well, I think I have to work with someone to really figure out from your viewpoint what is fair. I don't know. I don't deal with government that much. whether it's good or bad. But anyway, the old agreement is heavily dependent on headcount.
Right.
And because of the kind of, we operate under the shadow of Amazon. So we are very cost conscious. We try to be as efficient as possible. So we feel headcount is a kind of a iffy benchmark for us.
So with all due respect, this is an agreement that you signed along
Yep.
with the town.
Yep.
And you chose to outsource
Yep.
many of those employees. So I'm not sure that plea to, at least to me, doesn't really resonate because there was a commitment made, agreement signed by both parties. And you chose to make a business decision, and I fully understand the outsourcing part. I think any one of us are in a business where there's part of our organization have outsourced some component of our workforce. But you also were beholden to an agreement, a contract that you had signed with the town of Littleton and with the state of Massachusetts, so Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So for
Yeah,
me,
that-
that argument doesn't really resonate.
Okay.
Because there was a commitment made, commitment wasn't met, therefore, that created the noncompliance.
Yeah, that's why, this is an example only, and I need to have a dialogue working with somebody on your side. Hey, this is not appropriate. Okay, let's find an appropriate benchmark and walk through our business plan and lay it out and see what, this time I don't intend to trip over again, okay? So it's just a matter of let's agree on appropriate benchmark on benchmarks, and then I'll lay out how can I live up to it, and then you can take a look at it. But the bottom line, hopefully you understand, we are a medium-sized business, and this is all we have, and our business, I always tell everybody, if we don't ship any package, we don't get any cash coming in the door, and that's the end of the business. So it's important, and we really like to have your continued support on it.
Other board members?
Pardon?
I said other board members?
So I have a couple of questions. You said you started with 227 and you were, half of those were in the call center that you outsourced. You were going to add 130. So what is your head count now in Littleton?
Right now, just so we have a meeting, it's about 200 people.
Okay.
Now that's kind of bounce around because of the seasonality. Right now we are at the peak.
And what would you be in March? What were you before this holiday season?
I would say somewhere around 150.
Okay.
So that's your run rate, it's kind of 150 employees?
When you automated, did the number of employees actually go down?
The automation that we put in didn't necessarily take people out of the equation. It made the production of what they do easier. So the automation is just moving totes and boxes back and forth instead of them walking from one area to another area that's 100,000 square feet away. We put this material handling equipment, which says, I'm doing my job at this end of the building. This product needs to get to the other end of the building. I drop it on this piece of equipment. It brings it to the next person who now needs that tote or that box to do their job.
Okay, thank you.
And then so on and so on.
So the same employee can ship more packages per day?
Correct.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Efficiencies.
Yeah.
So I have a question for, two questions actually, one that you can answer and one for Kathy probably. You said you're going to plan on investing on a second and a third story and the equipment for that. Can you give us a rough idea on what that investment would be over the next few years? And then what would the tax impact for us be without a TIF?
So right now, actually it's a sticker shock for me. We got a estimate from our consultant, and it turned out to be a low 8-digit number. Okay. So, and our board is kind of shocked. So basically, we were told to sharpen the pencil and trying to figure out whether that's the right number. Okay. So that's really But on the other hand, we feel we have already as one set of management. If we go to someplace else, we'll have to have another set of management. So it doesn't make sense for us from building a platform. We already have a good platform, and we just have to build up the second floor, and we just.
So this low 8-digit number is for building the second floor, and then if you were to build the third floor, it's another potentially low 8-digit number?
Potentially, if, I think right now, when we got that quote, supply chain is all screwed up.
Yes.
Inflation, the
Yep.
steel price they quote is outrageous. So now we haven't gone back and say, hey, how far down? That's the sticker shock for us.
Okay, and outside of the sticker shock, then you would be talking about spending this low 8-digit number in the next year or two? And then again in 4 or 5 years out would be the...
I don't know about that third floor. It's all depending on the business.
What I'm getting at is when you signed the original TIF, you were committing to headcount over several years.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking if you're going to commit to capital investments over a
Yeah.
period of time.
Yeah.
So you have the one that's coming up that you say you already need, right? And the other one that you're planning for, what's the commitment that the second layer is likely to happen, right?
I can't say, I can't give you a definite
Okay.
because
So-
we were surprised with the huge amount.
Okay.
But
So-
basically, I'll give you a baseline. The reason we were able to fulfill the 14 million capital investment is basically Pat's operation in order to catch up with all the updates, software update. We easily spend 500 to 750 thousand a year. Just keep it up, and a lot of time they need additional functionality, all that. So it's a heavy commitment, and that's why we can kind of get to the limit within a 6-year period.
Okay.
Okay.
So then the question is, if they're investing, what is the town's assessment of that? And
So the tough part with that is when you say investing, you're going up in the already pre-existing building. So that would be more personal property, because when we assess a building, I'm assessing the building, and we look at rents. So I don't assess how good a business is doing. So what they're putting inside, that could be like additional racking systems, mezzanines, and things like that. Could be, like a mezzanine would be a little addition to the real estate, but a lot of that racking system would be in addition to personal property.
right, so they're basically taking a 450,000 square foot warehouse and making it triple the size without increasing the square footage.
Right.
So my question, so
Yes, right, so it would, because a lot of commercial is done on income approach and done by rents and what they lease this space out, because they're not the owners of this building, goes into the actual assessment, and how well distribution centers do in general builds up that value. But if you're saying they're already in the pre-existing square footage and they're going up and racking, like I said, it would just be in personal property, not so much, I don't know that we'd see that in the value of the whole building, if that's what you're asking.
no, I'm asking, not so much in the value of the building, the proper, in the,
I have to see it,
I think we are in the process of validating.
I'd have to
right?
see,
Yeah.
they would have to meet that. I know in the past when they first came, they said X amount of personal property was going, and it didn't amount to as much once you put it in. There's some personal property that's not taxable, there's, it's hard for me to know what type is going in.
So I think one of the ongoing, and this auditor probably should clarify it with Kathy. The number that I quote is based on general accepted accounting principle, the capital investment. So, but then a lot of those may not be subject to personal property tax.
Yeah.
And then Kathy and her auditor will basically validate our list and then say, okay, what about this? What about that? Hopefully.
right, so that's basically arguing that if you're investing eight figures in a capital improvements, there's no value or very little value coming back to the town.
So that's correct, and that's what happened at the beginning. They estimated 14 million in personal property, but that was hard and soft costs. So a lot of the investment into putting that up, and we didn't get, no, we did not get it all. That's correct.
Mr. Wilson, Ms. Matthews, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'm really big into looking at wording, because you brought up earlier that it's unfortunate we don't have a continuation of the same board for certain. So we're left really with looking at what this document says. First of all, and it's very clear, to me when I look at it, the company commits to implement its job creation and retention obligations set forth in this agreement according to the following annual calendar. And here it is, right? And it lists what that looks like. And it talks directly to it. If it shouldn't happen, should the company fail to submit a required annual report, or an annual report indicate that the company has failed to meet 100% of the jobs retained requirements and the new jobs created requirements, the exemption from real property taxation shall be 0% for the subsequent fiscal year and shall remain at 0 until the company is able to submit evidence. So it seems to me that somewhere in 2018, I'm assuming 2017 or 18, as soon as the outsourcing happened, that is a clear indicator that you were not meeting your numbers.
Yeah, so actually I copy down some. So at the end of 2018,
Yep.
I declared 253 full-time headcount, and the requirement is 242. Okay. But then 2019, I declared 188, and the requirement is 247. Yeah.
So according to this contract, in
Yep.
2019, you should have been at a 0% TIF, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't the town, the town had been trying, obviously, to get more information, and we've discussed that. It literally took the state for us to be informed that this wasn't being met, correct? So I would have expected a good tenant to come forward and state in 2019, because I know if it had been reversed, you would have been knocking at our door saying, whatever, you guys aren't in compliance. If we're not in compliance with something, you'd be right there. So when I see this, I don't understand why in 2019, you were obviously having record profits. Your business was growing exponentially. You had met the $14 million mark your first couple of years. I'm just trying to figure out why we should consider an extension when by everything in here, and I can go on to reading, just your obligation, 14, pursuant to 76 CMR, this agreement shall be binding upon the company, their successors, assigns the property owner and subsequent owner of the property. So it's not that this kind of crept up on us. We were informed that you were in violation of it, but you were in violation of the contract 3 years ago, and you didn't come forth to us. So it's hard for me to get around coming up with a new plan when I think that the town has been exceptionally fair. I look at, this is an outstanding TIF, and believe me, I'm all about commercial growth and our, we appreciate the businesses in our town, but this TIF was very beneficial to your company, absolutely beneficial to your company. And it wasn't, you didn't hold up your piece of the bargain. And I know it's personnel, but that's all we had. That was the agreement. And And it's not so much the personnel as that in 2019, 2020, 2021, nothing. We didn't hear anything. And in 2022, that was the EACC? Is that who it is that gave us the report? Yeah, gave us the report that you were not in compliance. So my question, how long would this have even gone on? How far we've got to the end of the TIF where realistically, we should have been at 0% for the last 3 years. And discussing recoupment, which we're not even discussing that. I know that's just my opinion on the board. But I wrote all over this paper, just all of these pieces that this TIF in this contract, we held up our side of the bargain the whole way. We never heard a peep of, we're having trouble. We need help. You've been on the board, I think a few of you have been on the board for a few years now, definitely before 2019. And did you know they were outsourced?
So that was going to be a question I was going to ask. I was going to ask Kathy, how many reports have you received from the organization?
No,
Yes.
she did.
Yeah, so I'm coming across as cold.
No
and
reports to our chief assessor.
I hate to come across as cold. I just, like I said, coming into this, I have a contract in front of me, and that's what I get to read. And everything that's been stated here, it isn't a suffering company that really needs help. It isn't. It's doing very well by all accounts. Even survived. It seems like growth through COVID has been good. It's almost recession-proof to some degree, for sure.
Which is great.
So, I'm having trouble getting my arms around continuing any type of a TIF. That's where I stand.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with the thoughts of my other fellow board members. My thought process is if the last benchmark has not been met, what guarantees do we have that a new benchmark would be met? To the point raised by Mr. Wilson, the minute that you felt the need to outsource your call center, we should have been notified. This is a written contract between your organization and the town of Littleton. We didn't breach our end of the contract, but you breached your end of the contract. And for whatever reason that may be, it would have been, I think, beneficial if you had come to the town and had a conversation with us, been more transparent with our assessing department. If the state had not notified us of this issue, we would not be aware of it, and that's concerning to me. And I don't think it's fair. This, board has been generous and forthcoming and generous through this agreement, and it's just disappointing that your end of the bargain wasn't upheld. Personally, I have no desire to enter into another agreement because the first agreement we entered into wasn't upheld. You're talking about expansion and growth. Your company's doing very well. You've already been made whole in some respects with respect to the terms in the existing agreement. And so I just feel that, at this point, it's unfortunate that we're in this situation that we have to be here tonight and have this conversation, but my personal feeling is that I have no desire to continue with another agreement.
I want to sort of ask the question very plainly, like, why should we give you one? The town is supporting your business with infrastructure, with police and fire, with safety, with water, with building inspectors, with all of that stuff. That is obviously a drain on our, and that's the reason that everyone pays taxes. And, it's very hard for me to go to a resident who's paying, very high property taxes and tell them that we gave a break to a, multi-million dollar, $10 million, $20 million company on their taxes, because they're going to say, why did you do that? And I'm not sure that I understand a good answer for that question. That none of the other manufacturing warehouses and fulfillment centers in town have asked us for a TIF or have one, to my knowledge. So that would be my question to you, I suppose.
I basically feel like I apologize definitely, with this conversation, when we outsource it, we should, have a conversation with this town. That's what I learned from this discussion.
Yeah.
As I mentioned, none of us really in the company deal with government that much, and so, but on the other hand, I hope, we have been here for 6 years, and we'll be here for the foreseeable future, and we will be a productive member in the community. I understand Gary and Cynthia's comment. Yep, we broke the contract.
Yeah.
That's it, and that's why I decide it's important to us. This is the only place, and we have ongoing constant pressure to be cost efficient, so we can offer the product to our customer at a competitive price. That's always. So, if our costs go up, so we have to find some way to offset it. So,
Okay.
that's the only defense that I have.
Okay, thanks. Do you have anything to add? I was going to sort of poll the board on thoughts, the final thoughts. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Insaldi?
No, I don't. You have all the information.
Okay.
Can express this case, so.
Mr. Harry, is there anything that is germane to this? Okay.
No, just that you have two motions before you, and if your decision is to not proceed with the TIF, we ask that you vote for it.
Okay, so I guess I'll pull the board for a moment.
If I just make-
Yeah, go
So-
ahead, yep.
So by this agreement, this contract really held true for the first 3 years of the agreement. That seemed to be, and then years 4, 5, and 6, at a 58.6% TIF, 58.6% TIF, 55% all exemption to taxes. I mean, you could argue that if we do nothing about those years, we've already been very generous, correct?
Correct.
I know the number, I know you probably have what that number looks like. If truly after 2019, when this zero, if we held to the word of the contract, and that went to zero on what the TIF was, what that number would be.
About $500,000 a year.
So, and when, it's kind of a cold thing to look at, but when I see $500,000 a year, I see 50 homes in tax revenue
Yeah, right.
that are just
Yeah.
not there. So it's, how do I look at a resident or another business and just say, yeah, that's the way it is. Going forward, if I'm talking about continuing this stuff, I don't personally think we should reach back and go further, but I just think moving forward, I have a hard time going and looking at, a town resident in the face or another commercial business owner and saying, yeah, we gave them another TIF because why? That's where I stand on it, so.
So I'm just going to pull the board quickly. Mark, you're
So I agree with a lot of things that Gary said. I don't think I would give them a TIF on their real estate value going forward. I'd be more amenable to giving them something on their future capital investment and continuing the personal property tax exemption, which is peanuts in this agreement compared to the real estate one. But they are talking about investing several $1 million into the building. And I think I think that is a good thing for Littleton, right? And I agree with Gary about not trying to recover and things, but just thinking from the business side, I don't want to completely, yes, they're in violation of the contract, but I don't want to penalize them so much that they're out of business or hurting completely, right? So that would be my consolation or concession that I would be willing to make as if we were to continue the TIF.
Okay.
So,
Mr. DeCoste.
Yeah, I appreciate Mr. Rambacker's comments, but more in line with
Okay.
my other colleagues have said, and I think that, we appreciate the fact that you're here. Aside from, I'm going to say it kind of bluntly, and I don't mean any disrespect by it, besides paying your fair share to this point, Potpourri has been, to the best of my knowledge, a good corporate citizen. I mean, there may be some calls that we've had to go down there for something or another here or there, but by all accounts, it's not, we don't hear about, that Potpourri business. It's we have to go down there again, so we're focused on, Mr. Wilson said, we're focused on our business community as much as we are on our residents, and we all work together. So we want you to be part of our community, and we want to try to do that, and I think we've done that with the services that we offer, the building commission, the land use, and it's all stuff that, Pat, maybe you have to deal with them as far as permitting and things like that. So I'm sure that you could testify to that. But I do feel as though the olive branch, if you will, that we're going to extend is the fact that you have not been in compliance, and we haven't been able to. I mean, $500,000 a year that's a good growth year for us. I mean, that's our growth number. That's a great growth number for us. And we do have expenses. We have contracts for our employees that, we have to pay them. They get higher salaries, and our expenses are going up for all, for building that we're doing, or for road, repairing roads and things like that. So I'm more of the appetite of voting on both motions tonight and terminating the TIF.
Cindy?
Thank you. So, I mean, I think it's one thing, I think we can't rely on promises and hopeful projections with regard to when considering continuing the TIF. I'd rather have you come back to us and say, this is what we've done, this is the growth that we've made, these are the improvements we made, these are the staffing improvements that we now have in place, whether that's a year from now or 2 years from now, and then come back to us and say that you've already met the expectations that you project that you will do so when wanting us to consider continuing with the TIF. But until you're at that point, I'm not of the mindset that we should continue it.
Okay, and I agree. I think we know where you stand as well. Unless you want to have any final words, I would suggest that Mr. DeCoste reads the motions.
Just a point, Cindy, are you suggesting we terminate it, or we terminate it for this year? Because it was just unclear in my mind what you were actually suggesting.
No,
Terminating it this year going forward, because they can't come back next year and report something to us.
I was just saying for general discussion purposes, just based upon what they represented to us as reasons to continue the TIF, it would be nice if those expectations had already been met while we're having this discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And I'd be more than willing to listen to a business that came back before us because they were in such a financial decline that they were having trouble remaining viable. Come to the board, and then we can discuss it. This is an existing business in town, so, and that's any business. We would like to have a say in how we can help our businesses stay in the community, as we have programs for our residences and things like that to help. So this doesn't, to me, fall into that category.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Will you please read the motions, Mr. Clerk?
Move that the select board vote to request that Massachusetts Economic Assistance Coordinating Council, EACC, revoke Potpourri Inc., PHI Acquisitions Inc., 3 Distribution Circle project certification.
Second.
Together?
Or one at a time?
You can do it one at a time.
Okay. Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Gary.
That work.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0.
Move the select board vote to request EACC make a finding that the project no longer furthers the public purpose of encouraging increased industrial and commercial activity in the Commonwealth.
Second.
Motion made by Chuck, seconded by Gary. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And the motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much for coming in. Appreciate your discussions.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Despite the unfavorable resolution, I still feel Littleton have been a good host. The infrastructure in terms of power and utility is good, and we don't have been affected by the day-to-day operation, so I appreciate it. Okay.
We
We do as well.
appreciate it as well, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If there's any more business, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion made by Cindy, seconded by Chuck. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all. Good night.